The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome into Spy for Rent's Spy for Rent podcast. I'm Tony Kurre. He is Corey. He's on the left-hand side. Of course, you watch the Tony Kurre YouTube channel, perhaps listening to us on our TKR podcast network. We have 19 different shows. This is one of our newer shows and one of our funner shows, to be honest with you. I've been using Spy for Rent now for the last 6 or 7 years. Their private investigators are the best spy for the number 4 rent.com, spyforrent.com, or FOR, either one works. 790-3051, 790-3051. But I implore you to go to their website because you can really find out exactly what they really do. They're bigger than spies. They're bigger than private investigators. They do it all. You need information on someone or something. They are the way to go. Corey, good morning to you, brother. How are you doing, my man? Everything good? The New Year treating you right?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Tony?
I'm doing fantastic. Something that I love to do on TKR, and by the way, the show also runs 5 days a week on the TKR radio station. So there's plenty of different ways you can check it out. We're available on every major indice. I like to humanize my guest, regardless of whether I'm talking to Mike Krzyzewski or I'm talking to Nick Saban or I'm talking to a Corey from Spy for Rent. I like people to get to know you a little bit, and I realize that you're a private investigator and a spy, so that's going to be a little touchy here, but we're going to get into that in just a second. But you've done a wonderful job of bringing on some special guests on the show. We've had a self-defense person on. We've had lawyers that dealt with insurance companies that we had on last week, which was fascinating. I got a couple of emails about that, by the way, that we'll get into, info@tonykurreradio.net. You also brought in someone about family and divorce law, which was really good. I learned something during that I was actually being served during the show, which was really exciting for me. That won't happen. That better not happen again in a million years. But I want to know, and I'm sure I'm going to get an email, because in your line of work, I imagine you work with some really interesting characters. Can you share with me one of the most interesting parties, interesting people that you either investigated or had to deal with so far in your career as a private investigator / spy for rent?
So some of the most interesting people are the people that you never meet. So a lot of times you'll have an attorney's office as a buffer, getting that attorney work product for a company.
Okay. And
they try to give you as little information as possible. So if you get subpoenaed, you don't know anything. So it's one of those, and that's what's really interesting to me, because, we're just there to get the truth. So whatever it is, I'm not going to make anything up. It's just, this is what I saw. This is what happened. But sometimes you don't know the why behind it, per se. And it could be, a political thing. It could be a business thing. And those are always the most interesting to me because, and some people try to figure it out. Right. And, if you get too far into it, you can kind of have a little bit of what's going on, but that's always the most interesting and weird ones for me is the people that want to get shelter, because they're behind, it might be a CEO behind a company, attorneys, and then they have another set of attorneys that have another set of consultants, and those consultants hired us, and it's just those are always the most weird ones. Mm-hmm. And then you get crazy people too, like. I have people that, I'm hearing things and all the stuff. And it's like, most of the time I don't entertain it. And I just, try to, but some people, you just got to show it to them.
All right, back up. You just piqued my interest. I'm hearing things. I used to have a stalker that used to call me every day on my radio station. Actually, I had 2 stalkers. I had one was a Sammy's dancer. That was okay. This one was not even close to a Sammy's dancer. She break the pole. But she actually, actually had her come up to the radio station, met with her once because she kept saying she kept hearing my voice all around her house. Obviously, she had some psychiatric issues. But when you say people are hearing things, give me an example of a case where someone would call you and say, I'm hearing things, and how would that be investigated?
So I've had real instances where they have smart homes and people are messing with them and trying to make them seem like they're crazy. And so you've got to be careful. Sometimes it is real. Most of the time, 90% of the time, 99% of the time, it's not when they're hearing things, but they're hearing things in their home and they're like, somebody's out to get me, somebody's stalking me, whatever. So you can set up surveillance if that, and you can also walk it through them logically if there's an actual way somebody could actually be producing some kind of sound where they could hear them. And, because they want us to do a bug sweep. They think there's a bug in their house. And I try to prevent it. If I notice that they might not be all there. I try to, be easy on them. Some people I've heard, they'll just be kind of mean to them, but I try to be nice to people. So I'm not mean to them. I'll talk them down, but I don't want to take their money if it's not real. But I have had some times where, it's just like, this guy is not crazy and he's telling me these things. And it's like, well, who has access to your smart home? Well, my ex. It's like, so, and so, they could get speakers and stuff like that and do things, but it's not, most of the time, if you're hearing things, that's really, not a real instance. Usually if somebody's doing a bug, it's to hear what you're saying, not to say something to you.
Yeah. When you say, we're talking to Kurre here, Spy for Rent, it's one of our hottest shows right here on TKR and tons of emails. You can tweet us. You can do whatever you want at TonyKurreRadio.net. And we'd love to take your questions here. And we got several emails, info@TonyKurreRadio.com. When you talk about bug sweeps, what exactly is a bug sweep? I've actually, thought for a while, because I used your services in a particular case, I thought maybe the favor was being returned. And obviously, if you're spying or doing some research or investigating someone, you can pretty much expect them to maybe turn the tables on you. But when you talk about a bug sweep, what's actually involved in that?
So the first thing you do is you get an intake, and I look for what kind of threats that you're worried about. Okay, this person always knows where I'm at. Okay, So that gives me two things, either a GPS tracker or they have some kind of access to your phone. Okay. So I need to observe those two things. If you're worried about somebody listening to you in a listening device, that's a different type of equipment. And then so what you'll do is you'll get an intake, a plan of action. And then usually if we're worried about eavesdropping devices or even GPSs, they're going to send off a signal, right? So you're going to get a baseline. So what you do is you get a device that shows you all the frequencies that are bouncing around this area, right? And then you know what spectrum that these different devices work on. And so you can tell through analysis a good, okay, this is normal, or what is this that, is just every now and then, just
by the frequency.
Yep. So,
wow.
And then
but you have to be relatively close to that bug, correct? Or to that listening device?
You should be, because so the cheap equipment that you buy from like a Amazon or something like that, they'll pick up anything, FM radio, whatever. And so these devices will too, but for once you get further into the sweep, after you get a baseline, you have what's called a near field detector, and you only want it to go off if it's near what you're looking for.
It sounds like a radar detector, like you can get one of those really screwy ones that go off every time there's even remotely any type of metal, which most people get to starter with, and then you can get the really Mac Daddies like the stuff you guys got, where you can actually find out exactly what you're looking for. Correct.
And then so that's just stuff that's sending off a signal. Then there's also things called drop devices. So for a drop device to work, they have to have access to whatever it is. Are they an employee, or do they have the keys to your car, to your house, et cetera? And what they can do is put like a recorder in a vehicle. But to find something like that, you either have to do like a thermal search to see the heat coming off, like, why is this hot? This shouldn't be hot, right? Or you use what's called a nonlinear junction detector, and that will find things that are not sending off a signal.
A nonlinear junction
detector.
Yep. Wow, that's crazy.
And so, like, think of a chair. So, like, if a chair wouldn't have electronics in it normally, and then the NJLD will pick up something if it's in there, like somebody sewed in a recording device or something.
Do you work for any ambassadorships or anything like that, or any special offices in Birmingham or surrounding areas that you're asked to actually do a sweep before they actually enter? I would think like if you're in the Cuban, and I know there's this thing. I've been watching some shows about the Cuban sound. What's it called? I forget what they're called. All these people have gotten sick and getting vertigo and stuff from the sound down in the Cuban embassy, the U.S. embassy down in Cuba. But have you ever been asked to actually do a sweep before people actually enter a facility?
Yeah, for meetings and stuff. And then you can monitor the same things that I was telling you about that you get the baseline from, the same software and the analyzers, the frequency spectrum analyzer you can use to monitor if any signals are coming off during the meeting. So does somebody have a cell phone that they're not supposed to have, et cetera? So you can monitor those type of things. I don't do it for like any municipalities or anything like that. I would love to, like, for instance, in the military, they have that stuff too. So like if you go into a classified area, they're constantly monitoring for personal devices or foreign devices that could leak classified information. So, I mean, it's a big deal.
That is fascinating. Kurre was Spy for Rent, Spy the number 4 Rent or FORrent.com. Check out their website. It's fantastic. I know you guys are in the process of redoing your site too. And I don't know why. It's already super good, but it's even going to be better. 790-3051, 790-3051. We got one here from Trey in Birmingham. He wants to know, ask Kurre if he's ever done any surveillance on a celebrity.
Yes.
You knew some of these questions were coming, and obviously you can't divulge a lot of these things, but pretty big celebrity here in town, or someone was it outside this area?
I've done celebrities that everybody in the world would know. Really? You can't put those trophies on the wall, and what usually happens when you have a celebrity and they get caught. So doing whatever it is that needs to happen. Usually what happens is a bunch of NDAs get signed. I get some money to keep my mouth shut and they settle out whatever the dispute was. But that's what I always tell people. You got to, some of the cases that we work, you'll end up on the news if you get caught. So, and you've got to be really careful. So those clients, that trust you with that, you've got to really take that seriously. Like I take every case seriously, just like it was a celebrity or anything else. But it means a lot when somebody trusts you with their client to with that kind of publicity that could be attached to it. And keep them around.
I promise we'll get to the crutch of the show, because I wanted to humanize you and ask you but you're kind of answering my questions anyway through these other questions. And of course, a great interview is when someone answers something and it gives me 5 more questions, which you're doing to me certainly on the show here. Spy for Rent, 790-3051, spyforrent.com. You mentioned cell phones. It used to be kind of hard. There was a show called it's not The Hunting Party, because there's a television show on NBC, but it was a show where they let go 5 people. They gave them a day head start, and then they had a group of former CSI or CIA and FBI investigators to find these people. And of course, the last person they would find would actually win the prize. It was a really good show, and they had everything from looking at licenses on interstates. They got cameras set up. I mean, it was just amazing, some of the technology they had. And then when you throw in the cell phone, man, I mean, it's like you're wearing a GPS everywhere you go. Even in the case that you're throwing a burner phone, you're going to be tracked somewhere. Talk about how the cell phone has changed your industry. Has it made it? I would assume it made it a lot easier. And how difficult is it to listen to someone else's phone? I'm not aware of any type of device where I could actually listen to stuff like you're talking about an ex listening to your cell phone. There have been a couple times in a friend's of mine's life where something will happen and then something else will respond to it immediately after, and he's like, there's only one way this person could know this, and that is if they're listening to my phone calls. And it's creepy how often that happens. How easy or how difficult it is to eavesdrop on another person's cell phone.
It's pretty easy if you have access to the phone, right? For anything else, like to do it remotely, it'd be difficult. Okay. So we can't. So in the state of Alabama,
just having someone's number and knowing where they're at is not good enough.
No. Okay. And then, so here's the thing too. In the state of Alabama, every state is different. We are a single party state. So if you and I are talking, I don't have to disclose to you that I am recording the conversation. Okay. But a third party that is not a party to the conversation, it is illegal for them to record. So we can't legally do a lot of things that we could do with phones. It's usually we're on the defense side with the phones. Now, there are apps and stuff like children apps that are on cell phones and Life 360, et cetera, that can aid sometimes in some things like this, but it's not, you have to have a legal means and, to be tracking the person. A lot of times that person allows them to track you.
So back up just a little bit. So, and I knew that Alabama was a one party state because I worked in radio. And I know that when we recorded people, we always had to let people know. And that was the worst because when you let someone know you're recording them, they act different, even if they're not doing anything wrong. They would call in, it'd be a great phone call. And I had to say, hey, listen, I want to play this back on the air. Is that okay? So you and I are having a conversation and that third person comes in. I invited somebody and they want to record our conversation because I'm trying to get some information out of you. That's not legal. Is it legal to record it? You just can't use it as evidence, or because obviously, and then say I do have some incriminating evidence and I'm that third party. What do I do with that stuff? It's just admissible or what?
It's not going to be admissible.
No.
It's illegal. It's illegal eavesdropping. And it goes back to,
even if I was just sitting at a table at a bar with you.
I mean, if you're in a public place and you're saying stuff, that's fine. If you're being loud in the public, I'm more so saying like, if you have a reasonable expectation for privacy and you're having a conversation, for instance, a car, most people would say that you have a reasonable expectation for privacy inside your home or your vehicle.
Yeah.
So even your spouse, if they put a recording device in your car, that would likely be proven illegal. Of course, you'd have to take it to court. Who's going to prosecute it? It's more so and I see more of these cases, and domestic cases happens all the time. But for it to get prosecuted, I would think it would be more of a corporate matter to actually see it prosecuted.
Yeah.
But and that's usually the likelihood too. Most of the time when people think somebody's in your cell phone, it's where are you having these conversations at? It's my first thing that these people are hearing these. Oh, I'm always talking in my car so nobody hears me. Okay. I'll check your phone, but the layman thing to do would be to put a recording device in your vehicle. And that's the most likely thing. Or somebody will be, people, don't realize they have a Ring camera out and they're talking on the phone and it's the Ring camera that got them because their spouse saw them with the Ring camera. So it's stuff like that. So it's not always as sophisticated as people think it is.
Yeah. Kurre is with Spy 4 Rent, spy4rent.com. It's a great website. They are redoing it 790-3051. They do everything from bug sweeps, surveillance, insurance stuff. And we've had a lot of special guests. We'll have more guests on coming up, and we'll take your emails, info@TonyCurreRadio.net, info@TonyCurreRadio.net. With about 10 minutes left here, I wanted to ask you one final question. I want to find out what you do to kind of start your day and find out who you are as a human being. Tommy in Gardendale wants to know what's the most dangerous situation you've ever been in?
I've been in a lot of dangerous situations. I've had guns pulled on me, serving papers. I've been hiding in a car on the west side of Birmingham. So good. Well, let's back it up. So I'm doing the recon of this area, the reconnaissance. And, this was early in my career. And I think they just threw it to me because nobody else would take it because it was a bad area. Yeah. And I'm seeing masked people with like gang colors on Google Maps. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be a fun area. Anyways, so 3 people tried to rob my car while I'm hiding it. They didn't realize I was hiding
in the car.
Yeah. So my buddies were like, why didn't you shoot them? And I'm like, you can't, people. So the first thing to do if you're caught up in a situation like that is drive away. And that's exactly what I did. I just drove away.
Oh, they were probably freaking out watching the car drive because they didn't know you were in it.
Exactly. But I mean, that's one dangerous situation. And then, you've got to be, we're not immune to traffic laws like the police are. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if you're following somebody that's a crazy driver, sometimes they can put you in a dangerous situation and you've got to make that judgment call of, hey, is it worth doing this? Or, I've stopped surveillance actually for that reason. It was a Halloween and these people ran over these kids and my client was actually mad at me but nobody was helping the kids out. So I get my medical kit out and I start checking everybody, seeing where the blood's at, everything. As soon as a doctor showed up and the guy said he was a doctor, I was like, what do you need me to do? I gave him the stuff and let him do it because he was the doctor. I just know, basic trauma medicine from the military. But, to me, those kids at the time was worth more than that case, to be honest with you. And we could always come back another day. But that was on the news. You could probably see when it happened a few years ago.
I do. I think I do remember that. You guys have been part of a lot of those very high profile things. A lot of people don't know that. And that's what makes you guys so good at what you do. Spy Forensic Kurre joins us right here on our podcast, which you can hear. And if you go back and listen to some of our previous shows, certainly we're topical, but just fantastic content here. Final question here. And I was gonna ask you about TikTok, but I think we can get into that a little bit later on. So let's move on, because I wanted to ask you about specifically what kind of routine do you have? And this could be a very personal question to you because we all have different routines. I have a different routine and you have a different routine. I certainly love routines. But as a person who is a private investigator and a person who has to watch where they are and where they're seen, I would think that you'd have some different types of routines. Could you kind of share with us how you start your day and what normally happens in the day of a private investigator like you?
So the day starts the night before. My favorite quote, and a quote that I live by, is a Bear Bryant quote. And I don't know if I'm saying this 100%, but it's not the will to win that matters. It's the will to prepare to win. Yep. So that is the biggest thing, no matter what you're doing in life. So a general told me when I was in the military, he said, always have your bag packed. So when you get done, in the Army, they would talk about it. You get in a patrol base, whatever, you've got to start your priorities of work, because you've got to be ready. You've got to have security set before you start doing the sleep and the eating and everything else. So when I get back in from a late night, it could be 4:00 in the morning. I got to be up at 5. Before I put my head to bed, I am making sure that all the stuff that I needed from yesterday was put in, and it's good to go. Charging anything that I need to charge. Doing the recon for whatever I'm doing the next day. When I say recon, it could be like as simple as a map. I'm looking at the map where potential avenues of approach are, et cetera. And then also you could, if you have the time, you would go do that physically and go on the ground and see, okay, I can set up here. I can go here. This is where I'm going to put my guys here. And then always having contingency plans. So backups. I have multiple batteries, multiple cameras, I have 1 is none, 2 is 1, and 3 is 2, right? So I believe that with everything I do, and that's what separates, I think, anybody in life. If they want to be good at something, I want to think that I'm a pretty intelligent guy, but
you are.
I'll outwork anybody.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. I never will go to bed and put my head on the bed and say, somebody's going to outwork me. And when I get done, I don't simply just go to bed and drink beer and watch TV. I am studying. I have a study plan. So what am I lacking in my personal life? What do I want to get better at? Well, anything in my job. And I have a list that I go down. It's a whiteboard, and I check it off. And that's what I do. Now, granted, and you could be in a hotel room. I don't care if it's a hotel room. I bring my stuff to study as well, because if you're not constantly learning, then you're going to get left behind. And I think a lot of people are stagnant in this industry. They've been doing it a while, and good for them, because I'm going to beat them. So,
man, that's great stuff. Anytime there's been, and I'll let you go, anytime there's been a case, and I watch some of the CSI crap and forensic files. I usually like to watch more of the nonfiction stuff than the network television stuff. But anytime you've ever had a case that just really floored you, like you just could not get over it or could not figure it out, or just something where it just left you with sleepless nights because you knew something was there, but you just couldn't figure out what it was?
So I've had that happen, and it's usually a budget issue. I can't make anybody do anything. And you just get these things. It's like, it's usually on the insurance fraud that keeps me up. It's like, why isn't this person moving? I mean, none of the things add up, and, maybe it is a real case, but some people will just be a hermit for the rest of your life. And we'll come back 5 years later and hit them up and see what they're doing in 5 years. But those are the cases or, it's like, I know I can get this. Like, let me do it. And they don't want it to get done. So it's just like, there's something here. Just let me, give me the resources I need to figure more of this stuff out. And, like I said, you're limited by the budget that they're going to give you, because I've got to make, certain times, if it's a big enough operation, I've got to pay people out too.
Yeah. And if you think that someone knows that they're being surveilled, how does that change your game plan? I mean, if you feel like, okay, this guy knows me or sees me or I've been caught, or you're not quite sure, but he's not doing the things that you thought he would do, or maybe he's even trying to throw you off the scent a little bit and do some things that normally he would not do. What do you do at that point? You can bring somebody else in, or do you just back off and go back after it later, or will he eventually screw it up?
So you can't stay on your toes, and be dotting your I's and crossing your T's 100% of your life. You're going to slip up some way. But I get that a lot. Honestly, it's usually not that we, knew he got tipped off. He's not going to, it's usually I get a case from somebody else and they didn't give me enough information. Like,
gotcha.
It's like, okay, these people are clearly doing a lot more counter surveillance than you led on to. And you can tell because you can see the counter surveillance pulled up. And then it's like, okay, like it could be something as simple as they're checking license plates. They got another investigator. Some of these bigger operations where there's a lot of money on the line. And usually what I do then is I call the client and I say, hey, look, boss, did you have somebody else out here? And they're like, what makes you say that? And it's like, well, this, and this. Oh, yeah, we did, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's something I need to know.
Yeah.
And I was like, so now I cannot do this by myself. I'm going to need multiple people. And this is what it's going to take. And it's going to cost more money. And that's, so you don't get caught. That's, you go, you see the situation, and then, but that can happen. Or if you're working for, with some people from out of, somewhere else, and you never worked with them before. And it's like, oh, I got this case. Can you do it? I just don't have enough time for it. And they didn't tell you that they got burned on it or something.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
like,
yeah.
This guy is just like, no wonder they wanted to give me the case, because somebody else got burned on this. And you just got to take that, be able to sense that, see the signs, go back, regroup, and then tell them this is the only way that we're going to be able to get this done. Because if you have enough people, I don't care, you can do the surveillance, even if they know they're surveillance. I
will say this. I've been working with you guys for 6 years, and certainly your partner in crime, Jeff, who's been a good friend of mine, was on Talk 99.5. We did Love, Lust, and Life, and we talk a lot about this here on Spy for Rent on the Tony Kurre Radio Network now, and more listeners we've ever had. And of course, the podcast are killing it too. It was amazing to me because I know he didn't do this on purpose, but some people are just really stealthy. I mean, I don't know how to even describe it. But he could be in the same room with me for 3 or 4 hours and I would not know it. I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like he's invisible. It's just the craziest thing. And I go, when did you get here? And he's like, I've been here since 8 o'clock. And I'm like, really? And then I feel bad because like I didn't see him. I'm like, he's like, no, I was just kind of hanging out. So I mean, there is a gift to that. There's a beauty behind it. And the stealthiness that is not something that we're not all born with. So that's certainly a gift, and you guys are the best of the best at doing it. Spy for Rent, spy the number 4rent.com or spyforrent.com. Google it, find it. You'll see it. Their website. They're redoing their website. I don't even know what you do on your website you'd redo because it's so great to navigate already, and it's amazing because when I got on there, it was almost like I started figuring, I could use them for this. I could use them for this. I could use them for this. So it's fantastic. 790-3051, 790-3051. Kurre, till next week, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Tony.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.